Hi, I'm Jen from thegamejar.com and I'm here with Alex, who is the creative director, and Jonathan, who's the animation director of Assassin's Creed 3. Hello, thank you for joining us today. So talk us through what you're showing on the game floor at the moment.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of new stuff we haven't shown before. It's great seeing everyone go hands-on with the game. We're showing one of the sort of side missions called Fort Walcott, which you can get into by sort of collecting trinkets for a particular character in the game and trading them in for secret maps. We're showing off a level from the naval gameplay just so that everyone for once and all can realize it's not on rails. It's actually fully controllable. You can navigate and fire and tell you guys to put up and lower the sails and all that sort of stuff. And I think there's even a little bit of Vita around there as well. So there's some Aveline gameplay on your PSP.
What made you decide to go to the American Revolution?
I think we just wanted somewhere brand new, you know what I mean? Like we wanted somewhere we hadn't been before, somewhere that other games hadn't been before, and somewhere that people would be surprised that we were going, so we had some room to move.
One of the first things that I learned about the game was we wanted to climb trees, and if you're in North America, like, they have pretty big trees, they have pretty big cliffs, and so that was one of the things that brought us across there. It was the setting first, and that gave us then the assassin afterwards.
Because obviously it's a completely different terrain from anything in the Mediterranean. How much of a challenge was that to create?
It wasn't easy. It's the biggest thing, actually. Obviously there's the tree running, but as soon as you add slopes into the game, there's a good reason why a lot of games don't have like really steep slopes and still allow you to fight, is because it's very difficult. You have to make sure that the character's feet will attach to the ground, and when they start swinging their sword, they're not hitting above their head, they're actually aiming at them and stuff. So that was the biggest challenge that we got with the new terrain.
So let's talk about Connor for a little bit. So he's half Native American, half English. How does he struggle with his heritage and how he works with both sides, or does he just fight for what's good all the time?
Yeah, it's hard to answer specifically without sort of giving any spoilers away, and we don't want to do that. But yeah, we wanted a character who was a step removed from the history. So he wasn't a patriot fighting to establish America, and he wasn't a loyalist fighting to protect king and country. We wanted someone who was one step removed. So we thought the Native American character was perfect. And we also like the idea of having a minority lead character, someone who wasn't, a middle-aged white guy, like we were getting a bit tired of playing ourselves all the time, so it's fun to do something a little bit different.
There's not many natives either in video games, so it was really interesting, and part of the challenge with it was to avoid all the cliches. The first things you think of when you're thinking of native person, they're often not true. So we had this kind of more sober version, but he gave us access to a bunch of cool new weapons like the tomahawk and the bow and things.
So obviously you researched Connor's native heritage a lot, so can you talk us a bit about the research that went into that, how I saw a video where he speaks Native American as well?
Yeah, so we thought if we're going to do this, we need to do it authentically and do our homework. So we hired native consultants from the local Kanien'ka community up in Quebec, and they helped us with language, they helped us with jewelry, they helped us with dress, they helped us with their interpretation of events, things that they don't want us to show from their culture, things that they're allowing us to show, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, there's one whole sequence in the game, a big chunk of it, where he speaks his native tongue, and I think it's certainly something most people haven't heard before. I think it's really fresh.
How did you capture such big battles while still trying to keep true to the facts of history, I guess? Well,
capturing the battles was mostly a technology problem, is in bringing thousands of people onto screen. So that was one of the reasons we really updated the engine. But it's not a revisionist history where we just go in and start changing things. It's a memory. And the Assassin's story, Assassin versus Templars, plays alongside the backdrop of the American Revolution.
We have the objective layer, which is the events that happened, and it's not a spoiler to say that the Americans win. In the end, so events play out the way they really did, and under that we layer our fictional story. But all the characters are at the right place at the right time. All the battles play out in the right place at the right time. The outfits of everyone you meet are as accurate as we can get them. The language they're speaking is as accurate as we can get it. So huge chunks of it we try to keep objective, and then we just fit our fiction in there.
So can you tell me a bit about Connor's ship? Because you've said just now that it wasn't linear and you can just sail around. How much gameplay is actually in the main game on the ship, and how does he go about actually getting on the ship? Because you see him running through trees, and then all we've seen is him on a ship. So how does that work?
So in story terms, I won't spoil it, but obviously, yes, it's an unusual object to gain. So it's part of the narrative, how he gets his boat and what his goals are. But there's some elements in the main story connected to naval battles, and they're usually historical events, and they play out at the right time. But there's also a whole thread of a very specific Templar that you can only fight at sea that you can set out for. So if you want it, there's 4 or 5 hours worth of naval gameplay in there. But if you don't want to just focus on the main story, there's only sort of 2, 3, maybe 4 moments you have to play.
We kept it optional because it was probably the single riskiest thing that we made for this game. It's very new. It hasn't really been done where you can actually have your own boat and ride it around on a completely physics-based sea and fight all these kind of other boats and stuff. But as we got closer to the final ideas and things, we realised that fans were really liking it. Like, they really enjoyed playing it when we took it to Gamescom, that type of thing. So we think now our big fear is there enough of it, you know?
So, talking of the fans, what kind of feedback did you get from Revelations, Brotherhood, the last few games, and what have you taken on board and made different for this one?
Yeah, so we're always paying attention to what people, want, and the boards, and people send us letters, and we get all kinds of mail from people, and it's cool, we want to make sure that we satisfy people, but at the same time, we also want to be true to the vision that we had with the game, so we set out with certain goals in mind, and we'll edit and tune and adjust things based on feedback, but we try very much to keep that core fantasy true, because people don't always know what they want until they get it. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you think, we heard a lot, for example, America will never work, tree climbing will never work, the naval battles are all scripted, and when people play it, like at the event here today, you see they're like, this is actually really cool, I like this. So you have to be true to your vision, and you have to have the courage to just deliver your game, and hopefully we make the right choices, but we're as human as everybody else, so you'll all tell us October 31st.
So we've just played the Vita game on the show floor. Obviously we're not going to speak about that, but is there anything in 3 that kind of ties in with the Vita game? Do their paths cross a little bit, or are they completely separate stories?
So the most important thing when we started the Vita version was to make sure that it was its own game. We didn't want it to feel like a port or a spin-off you didn't care about. It needed to be a unique assassin with her own story, and a fully featured Assassin's game. So that was our big goal with that. But there are crossover points, and if you play both, you'll get a better picture of how the Assassins fit into North America.
With Ezio, he was quite a ladies' man, let's say. Is there any love interests for Connor, or is he more in love with nature as such?
There is romance in the game, but I won't spoil it to say how it fits in. But yeah, we have a very different character, and it's a period of war, and the story that we wanted to tell was a little bit different. I know I'm talking around it, so I don't spoil anything, but no, he's by no means as much of a Lothario type figure as Ezio.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. It's been really great talking to you.
Thank you.